From $150,000 to $400,000. A successful SIL application case study. Introduction. Helping NDIS participants get support independent living (SIL) funds in their plan can be a long and confusing task. In this case study, we'll walk through how a participant's core supports funding jumped from about $150,000 to nearly $400,000 per year, all by securing supported independent living funding. This isn't just a celebratory story, it's a playbook. We'll break down each step the second home and support coordinator took so you can replicate this success. By the end of this 10-minute guide, you'll understand how to apply for SIL funding effectively, ensuring participants get the supports they need for independent living. Let's dive into how we achieved this outcome. Step 1. Identify the need and gather evidence. Our participant's situation had changed drastically. His family caregiver, his mother, was experiencing worsening health and could no longer provide the intense 24/7 care he required. At the same time, the participant was ready and needed to move out of the family home into a more supported environment. In other words, this was a significant change of circumstances, exactly the kind of scenario that warrants an NDIS plan review. The first step was to gather compelling evidence and document the need. We helped the family articulate the issues in writing, the caregiver's health decline, and the urgent need for SIL supports beyond what the current plan covered. We also listed out the specific supports we would be requesting in the review. In this case, the participant required supported independent living (SIL) supports, additional community access, the social participation supports. Each of these needs was backed by an explanation, for example, SIL funding to provide caregivers in a staffed home, community access to build independence outside the home, and support hours to gradually introduce him to living away from family. Tip: at this stage, gather any relevant supporting documents. This might include medical letters, for example, a doctor noting the caregiver's health issues, reports from therapists, or a behavior support plan if behaviors are a factor, and a support coordinator's report summarizing the situation. In our case, the support coordinator prepared an implementation report highlighting the participants' behavioral support needs and the inconsistency of previous support, demonstrating why specialized, consistent SIL supports and a new behavior support approach were critical. Having thorough evidence and clear rationale upfront sets a strong foundation for the SIL application. Step 2. Submit a comprehensive change of circumstances request. With evidence in hand, the next step was to formally request an NDIS plan review due to this change in circumstances. We completed the official NDIS forms, including the home and living H&L support request form specifically required for SIL, and wrote a detailed cover letter. In the letter, written on behalf of the participant's mother, we explained the situation clearly and empathetically. We stated that the family was under unbearable strain due to inadequate funding, and that the participant's upcoming transition to SIL couldn't be supported with his current plan. We explicitly asked the NDIA to review and update the plan to include the new supports needed for his safety and independence. Crucially, we itemized the supports we were requesting, SIL and community participation, so the NDIA knew exactly what to consider. All relevant documentation was attached, the completed H&L form, supporting letters, and the support coordinator's implementation report. We sent this change of circumstances review request via email to the NDIA, enquiries@ndis.gov.au, and CC'd the family, so everyone stayed in the loop. NDIA responded with an acknowledgement that the supporting documents were received and uploaded to the participant's record. They provided a reference number for the review request, which we noted for follow-ups, and indicated the home and living review team would take it from there. At this point, the application was officially in the system, a critical milestone. Tip: when submitting your request, make it as easy as possible for the NDIA to approve. Use clear headings or bullet points in your letter to align with the participant's goals. For example, we directly tied the SIL request to the goal of the participant, transitioning to independent living and relieving family burden. Also, be sure to mention if the participant's situation is urgent or high risk. In our case, we noted the urgency due to the caregiver's health and the participant's well-being. This helps your request stand out as a priority. Step 3. Proactive follow-up. Persistence is key. Once the request was in, we knew the waiting game had begun. However, don't just set and forget. A SIL funding request. Proactive follow-up can make a difference. Weeks passed with no word, and the family's situation was growing more desperate. About 2 weeks after submission, we took the initiative to follow up with the NDIS. In a polite but firm email, we reminded the NDIS of the family's urgent situation. We highlighted that the lack of adequate funding was causing serious pressure on the family, and the participants' need for SIL supports was growing each day. We even mentioned that if we didn't hear back with progress within 2 weeks, the family would have no choice but to lodge a formal complaint, not as a threat, but to convey how critical timely action had become. This follow-up email was sent to the same NDIS contact address, referencing the review request number we'd been given. The family, participants' mother and sister, were CC'd here as well, underscoring that they were actively awaiting news. This persistence paid off. The NDIS responded the next day, confirming that the review was in progress with the relevant team. While this was a fairly standard reply, it served as assurance that our request hadn't fallen through the cracks. More importantly, it signaled to the NDIS that the family, and we as providers, were vigilant and would keep advocating until a resolution was reached. Tip: always remain professional and factual in follow-ups. Emphasize the human impact. In our email, we described the stress and deteriorating situation at home in clear terms, but stick to the facts and avoid anger or blame. If appropriate, mention any timelines, for example, upcoming events or risks that add urgency. And don't hesitate to use the complaint process as leverage if the situation truly warrants it. Just the mention of a potential formal complaint can sometimes expedite action. Persistence can be the push that moves a review along. Step 4. Engage with the NDIS planner and fill in the gaps. Soon after our follow-up, the NDIS took action. A planner from the NDIS's home and living team reached out. In our case, this was done via a phone call, with a follow-up email summarizing the outcome. Be ready to engage collaboratively when the NDIS contacts you or the participant. This is your chance to clarify any questions and provide additional information. During the planner's call, we discussed the participant's situation in detail. One important question was timing. Since we had requested SIL funding, but the participant was still living at home at that moment, the planner wanted to know when he might actually move into a SIL arrangement. We explained that while he hadn't moved yet, the goal was to transition within the next plan period, gradually if possible. Understanding this, the planner structured the funding in a smart way. The plan would include the SIL support funding, but kept under the flexible assistance with daily life core budget until he actually moved out. This meant the family could use the funding for in-home support or trials until the participant secured a SIL placement. Then the NDIS would transfer the remaining funds to a dedicated SIL budget category when he moved. In essence, the NDIS built flexibility into the plan to cover his support needs both before and after the SIL house move. The planner also offered advice on implementing the new supports. Because the participant had a positive behavior support plan and a history of behaviors of concern, the planner recommended using only NDIS-registered providers for his support workers going forward. The reason was to ensure higher quality and safety standards, and to have providers who could produce the detailed reports the NDIS would expect for review and accountability. We took note of this advice. However, since the funding was plan-managed, we had the flexibility to use unregistered providers if needed, so the approach would be to gradually move to registered providers in a reasonable time frame, balancing continuity of support with compliance. Another crucial piece: make sure all missing information is provided. In our case, Because we had submitted comprehensive documents up front, there wasn't much that the NDIS still needed. But if the planner had asked for, say, a formal SIL provider quote, or an updated behavior support plan, we were prepared to supply those immediately. Before the review, Second Home had already provided an estimated roster of care, which is how we knew roughly the weekly cost that SIL would entail. Always ask the planner if there's any further info or documentation you can provide to help, and have those documents ready if possible. Step 5. The outcome: new plan approved. After careful preparation, submission, persistence, and collaboration, the effort culminated in a successful outcome. The NDIA approved a new 12-month NDIS plan for our participant. When we received the news, the results were even better than expected. The total core supports funding jumped to nearly $400,000 for the year, effectively nearly doubling the previous core budget. This dramatic increase reflected the inclusion of SIL and additional supports. When the family saw the new plan, they were overjoyed. The family emailed to express their gratitude, saying that the updated plan with SIL approval gave them hope and relief for the future. The participant now had the funding to start a new chapter towards independence, and his mother had the prospect of respite from constant caregiving. This outcome demonstrated how a well-prepared SIL application can truly change a participant's life. Step 6. Key takeaways: SIL application playbook. In summary, this successful SIL application wasn't magic. It was about presenting a compelling case to the NDIA and following through at every step. Ask our team for a playbook as a guide for your own SIL funding applications. With preparation, perseverance, and person-centered planning, you can help other participants achieve life-changing outcomes. Here's to empowering participants to live more independently and supporting families when they need it most. Thank you for watching, and good luck with your SIL funding applications.